right, you were asking for food for thought. Here we go. We'll get the digital revolution for dessert. And as we say in German, es geht ans Eingemachte. In English, now we are getting serious. And I'd like to ask you a question now. How many manufactured nanoparticles do you think you have eaten today? 10? 1,000? 1,000,000? Well, I'll come back to this. So, who of you thinks we have finally arrived in the information society? Come on. All right, sorry to say you need an update. Back in 2017, then Chancellor Angela Merkel, together with her colleague from Japan, were announcing our future, which is the Society 5.0. And the question is, what is this about? There are some books, I'm not sure you've seen them, you've read them, so my talk will introduce this to you. So, in fact, the information society may already be behind us, and we haven't noticed that. So we've gone through the hunter and gatherer society, the agrarian society, the industrial society, information society, and now comes the society 5.0. And what brings us there is Industry 4.0, and this is about cyber-physical systems. It sounds not super exciting. I mean, we know what this is about. We know a lot of sensors, Internet of Things, automation, edge computing, whatever, kind of lots of sensors, and automation, right? So here is an article, or a quote from an article, and says it relies on computerized automated control, and the goal is to operate society in an integrated fashion. Okay, sounds fine. And we would probably think of something like a traffic control center just scaled up. So basically, the question comes up, could one manage and fix the world from a control room? That was basically the vision of the NSA at the time, and people were not so excited about it. Then there is another detail that deserves attention. Wikipedia, for example, mentions that the Industry 4.0 is not just about artificial intelligence and advanced robotics, which we would expect, but also about gene editing. And that shows us that the plans are a lot more ambitious than you might have expected. At least I have expected. So what if the goal is to come up with a cybernetic society? That means replace governance by cybernetics, an information-driven society. And then basically the goal would be to create an operating system for the planet, not an operating system for a smartphone or a computer, an operating system for our planet. And how would that work? Well, probably on the basis of the principle code is law. And that may include predictive policing, robot judges. I'm not sure how you feel about it. And one of the British Secret Services, GCHQ, even came up with a karma police program. That means they were attempting to judge your karma, not just crime or terror, everyone's karma, and police it, you know. How do you like that? All right, that may not even be the end of it. There is a booklet that a ministry in Germany has published, Smart City Charter, and it mentions one possible vision of the future, which is the post-voting society, and I just translate one sentence from this. As we know exactly what people do and want, there is no need to vote. Behavior-related data can replace democracy as societal feedback system. So democracy will go away, and that's what we can actually see. And we'll have another information-based feedback system, you know, and then we would think of this kind of lots of surveillance cameras, and many people don't like that, but do we even need them? because basically we can see through walls using Wi-Fi signals. I'm not sure everyone was aware of this. We can even measure the heart rate, your heart rate, and it does not require any wearables. Plus, we have smart meters, smart homes, smartphones. Smartphones have about 20 sensors in them. So lots of possibilities to collect data, right? So this puts you under the microscope, like it or not. And so I'd like to ask you, whom would you share your intimate health data with? Say, the military, secret services, pharma companies, big IT companies, your chancellor or president, a ministry. So it's kind of clear we need to be in control of this sensitive data, right? But are we in control of that data? Well, some of you have a smartwatch, you can raise your hand, and you have decided to collect health data. And of course, for a good reason, because the goal is to create something like personalized or precision medicine. It's tailored to you. Maximum effectiveness, minimum side effects. So who would not want to have that? And of course, it takes lots of data in order to get there, right? But if we just had enough data, eventually we'd have a human digital twin, not of an average human, but of you. That is the declared goal, right? And so how to get there if we don't collect lots of data? Lots of data. Okay, and basically that has started at latest back in 2015 when IBM together with Apple, Johnson & Johnson and Medtronic formed an alliance basically on health data. Now, at that time, you probably think there was not that much health data, but perhaps we were wrong. And the idea was even to come up with a new kind of approach towards health. Apple wants to establish their own health care clinics, very much driven by big data, I would guess. So, now next question. Who of you would be willing to share your brain data? Just one person, 2, 3, okay, 4. That is not, I would say, 5% of people in this room. And why are you so conservative? Well, I can tell you we're all connected. And I'll introduce to you the concept of the Internet of Bodies. Back in 2020, the World Economic Forum informed us that tracking how our bodies would work could change our lives. And I believe that immediately. Then further they said, this is about collecting our physical data via a range of devices that can be implanted, swallowed, and worn. Okay, worn wouldn't concern us so much, but the other things perhaps a little more. And just a few months later, also in 2020, they said the Internet of Bodies is here, now in this room, basically. And there is another quote that I'd like to share with you. Recent technological advancements have ushered in a new era of the Internet of Bodies, with an unprecedented number of connected devices and sensors being affixed to or even implanted and ingested into the human body. While scientists would not speak about Internet of Bodies as a popular language, but about the Internet of Nano Things or Internet of Bio-Nano Things, and how would that work? Well, basically, perhaps we could come up with nanoparticles that would fit into our cells, and we would be able, with some tricks, to read out data using those nanoparticles. That's basically the concept, and this is based on what you call converging technology. So basically Internet of Things sensors have become smaller and smaller and smaller, and now eventually they have reached nanoscale, some of them at least, and it's connected with information and communication technology among others, and also you see the goal is to have some impact on our cognitive apparatus. I find that interesting, and so if you ask ChatGPT for the kind of nanoparticles that matter most, and it mentions among others magnetic nanoparticles, but also carbon-based nanomaterials, and look how beautiful they are. So these are particles less than 100 nanometers in size. It means a 10,000th of a millimeter. You cannot see it with your eyes. It's really very small. It fits into your cells, you know, different kinds of nanoparticles. And the question is, what can we do with it? Well, this is a question that, for example, the so-called BRAIN initiative has asked. And back in 2013, the United States has decided to put $3 billion into this question. And the steering committee was full not only of neuroscientists, but also of experts in nanotechnologies. And this is because actually nanotechnology was at the core of their plans. I'll share it with you in a second. So the initiative seeks to deepen the understanding of the inner workings of the brain, of the human mind, and improve how we treat, prevent, and cure disorders of the brain. By the way, also so-called behavioral disorders. So it's not just about your brain, but also how you behave. Now here's another paper also from the same year, and it's about nanotools for neuroscience and brain activity mapping. And it says, nanoscience and nanotechnology are poised to provide a rich toolkit of novel methods to explore brain function by enabling simultaneous measurement and manipulation of activity of thousands or even millions of neurons. Now, how do they want to do that? Jesus. And then there are papers about human-brain cloud interface, and so there's interest in this. The question is, how much has this advanced? The question is, how could such a system really work? I'm trying to get into more detail. I should say, you know, I'm not working exactly in this field of converging technologies, but I've spent many months on trying to put the puzzle pieces together, and I encourage you to also do your own research. So you've probably often seen pictures like this, you know, and what does this refer to? So I think most likely to optogenetics. And what is optogenetics about? This is about exploring ways to stimulate genetically modified nerve cells using light pulses instead of electricity. So, you know, in order to enable this optogenetics, you first need to interfere with the genetic system of your body. And in fact, this is not just theory. There have been publications about wireless optogenetics, neural dust for deep brain stimulation, and there's a paper on optogenetic control of RNA function that is in Nature, so high-level journal. And here is a paper about the Internet of Bodies, a systemic survey on channel modeling. And in fact, it turns out that some of these channels can be accessed via 5G networks. Then back in 2013, we had this paper about the development of real-time in vivo sensors. And in 2017, another paper on real-time in vivo monitoring of those magnetic nanoparticles I mentioned before in the bloodstream. And then in 2020, there was this paper about an Internet of Bio-Nano-Things for early detection and mitigation of infectious diseases. In 2019 then, DARPA was giving lots of money to Battelle with the goal to develop injectable bidirectional brain-computer interfaces. This is being called non-invasive brain-computer interfaces because it does not need a surgery, okay? Then in 2021, the UK Ministry of Defence informs us that it could be argued that treatments involving novel vaccination processes and gene and cell therapies are examples of human augmentation already in the pipeline, and the future of human augmentation should not be decided by ethicists or public opinion or you, but by politicians, by governments, in fact. And the question is what has really happened. Here, another interesting paper that is on deep brain imaging with quantum dots. I find that interesting. And quantum dots may be even measurable using smartphones. And then there was this in 2024, which basically shows a surveillance system on the cover of The Economist, which surveils brains. Now, what if, I'm asking, if technology was more advanced than we would think? We know what we can do with 10 million euros or 100 million euros, but what could we do if we had 100 billion euros, you know? That is a question that I'd like to ask. And now, here's an idea that people could come up with. Imagine one would try to steer human behavior with generative AI. Now, how many parameters would be needed to control human behavior? How many to control an entire society? Would not be perfect, but we could try, you know, should we? And what would be the problems? Well, there is already neurocapitalism on the way. Neurocapitalism is the successor of surveillance capitalism. Surveillance capitalism infers what you do, think, feel, while neurocapitalism wants to be able to influence and steer what you think, feel, and do. That's the difference. And the question is, how far has this actually progressed? So this article over here argues the potential of brain-computer interfaces is for humans to merge and achieve a symbiosis with artificial intelligence. How many in the room want this to happen in their life? Okay, one person, congratulations. With recent years, several big tech companies that operate with the surveillance economy have begun developing their own brain-computer interfaces, you know? And then the question is, could we actually, besides using it in economic context, could we run society based on neurocapitalism? And there are papers basically looking into this, you know, what would be the implications for public policy? Why not neurodemocracy? I'm just asking. Then things are getting serious because apparently advertisers are already trying to hijack your dreams. This has been published by MIT. It says the next frontier of advertising isn't virtual reality or holograms, if you saw that. It's your dreams. And the practice already exists. So there's no wonder that some people warn of dangers of neurocapitalism and say, because of the power inherent to technology and its potential ruinous abuses, action must be taken before the appearance of that technology and not come as a reaction to it. I would actually agree. 2019 already, we were warned, brain reading tech is coming, the law is not ready to protect us. I'm not sure it's ready now, to be honest. Now, at least now we can see the quote of the former CIA director Gus Hunt in a new light, who said, "You're already a walking sensor platform." It is really very nearly within our grasp to be able to compute on all human-generated information. Now you have a better idea what kind of information that could be encompassed. Another problem besides neurocapitalism could be military use. So, in fact, many people believe we are in the middle of a hybrid international war. It's not officially declared, but certainly we have something like an information war, and that information war includes cognitive warfare. Not necessarily the use of these kind of neurotechnologies. Already the personalized information approach that Cambridge Analytica has taken would be concerning enough. But it would not stop there. The more data we have, the better we can personalize and target you in order to change your behavior, because this is at the core of war fighting according to military circles. But we would get concerned if we then really look into some books that are available on the subjects, and the one on the left is on military neuroscience and the coming age of neural warfare. When is it coming? That is the question we should ask. Back in 2019, there was also this interesting paper, obviously published in Proceedings of the NATO. It's from Human Body Digitization to the Internet of Bodies, a new dimension of military operations, and says, instead of devices connected to the internet as in the Internet of Things, human bodies can be connected to a network with the potential to be controlled and monitored remotely. How do you like that? Well, I have a few scientific concerns here. So back to the traffic control center we started with. So we've been working on traffic light control. It's an NP-hard optimization problem, and it turns out that actually top-down imposed green waves and also AI solutions don't work that well. Also because there's a lot of variability in these kinds of systems. So a bottom-up approach that is adaptive to the real traffic situation in the local neighborhood can actually, with a little anticipation, outperform many of those modern approaches based on machine learning. And so the question is, if we really want to combine cybernetics with synergy, do we have to build our cybersyn war room, as was suggested in the beginning, or shouldn't we perhaps take a synergetics approach, which is based on bottom-up self-organization between the components of the system? In fact, I think this works much better in complex network dynamic disrupted systems, and there are a lot of these systems in the world, our society, our economy, financial markets, our brain, our health ecosystem. So, is really big AI the only solution to the problems that we have? I'm also raising this issue because there is a dark secret at the heart of AI. And this dark secret is that often there's the use of black box algorithms, right? And so some people have prophesied that we would see the end of theory, and the data deluge would make the scientific method obsolete. And with this, also scientists, and your jobs will be gone. Well, it turns out that this has been used a lot, also with a lot of success in many systems. So there's many success stories, but does it always work? Or does it perhaps fail in those complex network dynamical disrupted systems, or some of them? We need to pay attention. And actually, the godfather of AI, now even Nobel Prize winner, Geoffrey Hinton, actually suddenly got concerned about this approach that he is actually promoted and largely developed with others. So at that time, also, it became clear that generative AI systems would often show hallucinations, and basically produce deep fake. And perhaps the better they get in producing output, it would take us longer and longer to detect whether a statement is true or not. So I'm not so sure whether there will be too big efficiency gains in the end. Another thing that doesn't work is just take pedestrian trajectories and use machine learning to learn these trajectories. Machine learning will predict those trajectories much better than model-based conventional approaches. But it misses out on the most important point, namely to avoid collisions. Now, if we take this approach and take all the data of the world and feed it into a monstrous AI system, and basically run the world with such a system, what would be the collisions in that this system produces. Now, wouldn't it be conflict? Wouldn't it be wars? Wouldn't it be things that shouldn't happen? Now, actually, there have been some stunning failures recently of such approaches. So, for example, Tesla is now investigated over self-driving cars on the wrong side of the road. It's not the only example. Actually, for each big company, there are examples of large-scale failures of black box approaches. But one thing that concerns me really a lot is the deterioration of the state of democracies around the world. And the question is, how is this related to big data and how we are using AI? I do think there are relationships because autocratic states certainly use big data, surveillance, AI for suppression. And those algorithms are being sold all over the world. So they're coming into democratic states and they're changing the character of these states as well. So kind of, is AI failing democracies? Is AI failing us, our human rights? It brings us to ethics. And so what red lines have actually been crossed or are being crossed? So privacy certainly, self-determination is gone many times. Personal identity may be influenced or changed even. Human nature may change with those non-invasive neurotechnologies that I mentioned. Then there's the militarization of body and mind potentially also being applied. I think there's a violation of the Nuremberg Code and also human dignity is really at risk. And the data-driven approach really misses out on many qualitative things that matter to humans. And this includes love, freedom, creativity, consciousness, and everything that's going to be well quantified, including human dignity. So what is human dignity really about? And here is a sentence of the Superior Court in Germany, and it says, it would not be compatible with human dignity if the state could claim the right to forcibly register and catalog people in their entire personality, which however now becomes possible and maybe is happening already. It doesn't matter whether it's the state or a company, in both cases human dignity would be in danger and would have to be protected. So, despite this, also I should say human dignity really demands that we don't treat people like animals, like things or robots or data. So we deserve a special treatment for many reasons. Despite this fact that we shouldn't be over-surveilled, we've been turned into data mines, basically. We are the resource, let's be honest about it. And it's possible to collect a lot more data than you think. Coming to the summary, so society is changing dramatically, probably more dramatically than most of us think. You should really spend some time on figuring out what is going on exactly. There's large-scale manipulation by means of personalized information already. You may not always notice it, and just think back of Cambridge Analytica. Now there are even potentially more sophisticated ways of doing it, but there's a lot of personalization in order to not notice how you're being manipulated. Wi-Fi, 5G are not only communication networks, but can also potentially be used for measurement and also potentially control. Nanoparticles should perhaps be seen as a special kind of wearables. Some can be used to read out body data, and that, of course, would make us vulnerable. And human augmentation can be used in military ways. So, unfortunately, there are many dual uses. Considering what can be done with our digital twins today, such as the subliminal manipulation, stealing your data allows others potentially to steal your life. Of course, if somebody else can control what you're doing or thinking or feeling, I think that's potentially quite bad. But there are also unwanted side effects. And so I'm coming back to this question. How many manufactured nanoparticles do you think you have eaten today? Well, it's an astonishing number of 10 to the 10 to 10 to the 13 nanoparticles. I mean, this is kind of 10 billion to 10 trillion nanoparticles. Did you even notice it? Did you like it? Did they taste well? So, many of them are not declared. So this is the list of the first dinner we had together. This is a declaration list. And it says, additives subject to labeling requirement. But there's many additives that are not subject to declaration requirements. And so most of them you don't know of. And several of them are not very healthy, potentially, to tell the least. So the question then is, what are they doing to our health and to our mental health? You know, scientists often quote Max Planck as saying, like, science progresses funeral by funeral. I don't want to be that dramatic, you know. Just for today, let's believe what politicians tell us. Don't worry, all will be fine. We certainly, however, need to get back control over our own lives. And for this, over our digital twins. That requires solutions for informational self-determination. They're not yet there. We really need to demand them. I think this is key, the fundament for everything else. So we need to talk about who controls our data. And I haven't heard enough of that discussion. So this is what the highest politician in Germany, Frank-Walter Steinmeier, has said, our president. We need a democratization of the digital world. And this is perhaps that you should also take very seriously. I'm asking you. There are some things you can actually do. Please apply a value-sensitive design approach. Build democracy by design. Invent tech that protects human rights in our environment too. Build freedom tech. And it's not the same as libertarianism, you know, I can tell you this. And now, don't go for the beta-wanted dictator approach, you know, the social engineer that knows better and decides for others. Go for assisted self-organization, human-centered approaches, explainable approaches, supporting symbiotic co-evolution, and boosting serendipity, I mean lucky coincidences, okay? And if you want to know a bit more about what I've talked today, I think it was a lot and hard to believe, here are a lot of references in this preprint, and you know, I hope I could deliver you food for thought. It's perhaps already in your brain, and we're all connected, and isn't that a great experience? So, bon appetit.